I'm Bill McWilliam, president of Cascadero Copper, CCD on the TSX Venture Exchange. Cesium is one of the world's rarest metals with a growing industrial demand. Drilling is underway on our Tehran property in Argentina to prove up a cesium resource. Cascadero's patent-pending leach process has the potential to make Cascadero the lowest cost supplier of cesium in the world. Visit our website, cascadero.com, or phone us at 604-924-5504.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Sean Brodrick. He's the senior analyst for EdelsonInstitute.com. Welcome back to the show, Sean.
Thanks very much for having me on.
The North Koreans' so-called development of a hydrogen bomb has people nervous. What have you seen as a reaction on the markets?
Well, I've seen things blamed on it, but it's hard to say what is actually real, what is not. One thing is that the Japanese yen isn't really being seen as a safe haven right now. So you would think that money would flow into the U.S. dollar, but I think it's flowing into gold. And other money that's also flowing into gold would be the money from Bitcoin. We've seen Bitcoin going lower based on news out of China, where they're cracking down on issuing new coin-type products. And so why that affects the existing products, we don't know, but maybe people are fearing a further crackdown to come. So this thing with North Korea might just be a pretext for the market to shake things out anyway, because it was overdue for a correction, right? So that doesn't really concern me. If past is any example, the market will get over this quickly. So I'm not really worried about that. I am heartened by what's going on in the metals, but this is a trend that's been going on for a while. This is just adding some real sauce to this, and so boosting things up for all kinds of metals, really.
Gold, how well has it done?
Hit a one-year high. That was really nice. And silver's back at $18. So, I mean, for the precious metals, gold is at $13.49 as we're talking right now. That's pretty darn good. Now, that is overhead resistance, that $13.49, $13.55 level that we'll see if gold can actually get through that, or will this take some time? Maybe it'll take a breather and stuff like that. I added yet more gold positions last week. I'm not adding any right now because after this big jump up, I'd like to wait and see, and the ones from last week are up. That's kind of nice, and we'll see how things go. But certainly, if you're long the metals, you're in a comfortable spot right now. And not only things like gold and silver, but also copper. I mean, the copper miners have been doing extraordinarily well. Iron also doing well. Pretty much all the metals. They've been having a great quarter, actually.
If copper is going strongly, is that a good sign for the economy long term?
You have to think it's a good news for the global economy. What it's kind of based on is the demand out of China. And we think that's in part due to the record number of new construction projects. This is big infrastructure projects announced by the government. They were kind of worried about things, so they announced some new ones. And so there's a lot of buying going on related to that. But also, it's good for the economy. It shows that certainly all the factories over there need more copper for all the things they make. Copper is one of those metals where it's very hard to substitute. I see people trying to make substitutions all the time. In fact, I used to know a guy his job was flying over to China to see how the latest substitution they did for copper went. They always tried to use aluminum, and they almost always failed. So it's a tough metal to actually substitute, and it shows that things seem to be trucking along over there. So as long as international trade isn't derailed, we can talk about that a little bit if you want, then things look good in the global economy. That said, there's always a black swan waiting. We just don't know what it is yet.
Yes, international trade. President Trump has said he's proposing that the U.S. stop trading with any countries that do business with North Korea. in an intertwined global economy, is that possible?
Well, first of all, he said he was thinking of it. And I bet he thinks of a lot of things. So I put no weight in those words whatsoever. I'm pretty sure that it was something that he just tweeted out. He did not say it, by the way. He just tweeted it, which, as we know, is one of his early morning tweets. So I think that his advisors will talk some sense into him and say, look, China is the biggest trading partner for North Korea. We can't stop trading with China because then they'll just start selling U.S. treasuries because they won't need those dollars anymore. And that will be a terrible thing to have happen. So I'm not actually worried about that as much as some other people are. But there might be other scarier things in the global economy. There's a massive debt bubble that just seems to be getting worse and worse. And we thought we might have a fight over it in the U.S., but they've now linked raising the debt ceiling to Hurricane Harvey relief. So that football is going to be kicked down the field a bit longer. And other parts of the world, you know, they just keep passing these debt milestones, and they don't care. And at some point, that is going to matter. It's just not mattering right now.
We'll have more with Sean Brodrick right after the break.
Lotus Ventures Inc. is a BC-based medical marijuana company poised to launch into the rapidly evolving cannabis sector. Lotus is in the final review stage of the Health Canada approvals to become a licensed producer, having arranged facility financing of up to $12 million, plus building permits for its prototype indoor production facility. Shares trade under the symbol J on the Canadian Securities Exchange. Visit our website at lotusventures.ca.
I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Rideout Shear Zone in Ontario. With grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold, a drill program will commence this spring to test the numerous targets located by recent groundwork. For more information, visit our website, rmroyalty.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Sean Brodrick. Sean, what's the picture on oil? Is it going to hold up around the $48 mark or even go higher?
Well, it's right now testing its downtrend, which has been in place since April. And I think this looks quite bullish, especially with the action that I'm seeing in select oil stocks, the ones that tend to lead any rally. They're still looking good. So, now some of this is Harvey related, but there's underlying bullishness along with that. It's not just Harvey. So, sure, the infrastructure in Texas got smacked around, and they had some problems out in the fields, and that is delaying things a bit. But there's an underlying bullishness in the oil market that, if we see a breakout here, which could certainly happen, then the next overhead resistance is $54 for the U.S. oil benchmark. So just keep an eye on that, and now's not a bad time to add some oil stocks if you think that's going to happen, because those that generally get a lift from oil price move like that, they'll obviously go higher.
How much refinery capacity was taken out by Harvey, and is there a surplus of it elsewhere to look after the oil?
Well, the whole thing is certain refineries are actually geared to take certain types of oil. You really can't shift it around like that. About anywhere between 25% and a third of U.S. refinery capacity in that area was off at any one time, but it's coming back very quickly, faster than people thought possible, which just shows the resilience. Those guys are obviously building their refineries to come back quickly. They might be planning on these kinds of things. So that's the good news. The bad news is if Hurricane Irma misses Florida completely and then sails on into the Gulf of Mexico. It's the strongest hurricane in 12 years, winds of 180 miles an hour. You know that would cause some damage. I'm not saying that's going to happen. In fact, most of the models expect a turn north at Florida and for it to go north through Florida. But we are still days away from that actually making that potential turn, and a lot can happen between now and then. So Irma should be on the radar of anybody who's looking at the energy space. Also, again, it is days away, but we've seen orange juice futures just skyrocket because they know that's going to impact orange juice futures if it marches through Florida the way that it looks like it's going to right now.
What about other agricultural trends with those storms, with Houston being hit? Beef markets, are they hurt, or is that beef country?
Well, beef has been under pressure forever, live cattle, so that's not really changing. Lean hogs are looking a little good. There is some export of agriculture stuff through Texas, and so that's certainly there, and we saw a nice move in corn, for example. Wheat looks to be perking up from its doldrums and stuff like that. I know some people who play the agricultural markets very successfully, but man, do they move fast. They really do. And so they aren't for the average trader, that's for sure. But sure, I mean, soybeans, they're like rocketing right now. They're doing very, very well. So depending on how you want to play it, that is something that is going on, but I prefer to look at the metals because that's a longer term trend and it isn't over. In fact, I think that it has years to go. And so that's one that you can get on and off, take gains, buy again on a dip, stuff like that. That's one that's just easier to play.
We'll have more with Sean Brodrick right after this.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Keep informed. Receive our weekly recap of thought-provoking articles, podcasts, and radio delivered to your inbox for free. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage, HowStreet.com. Welcome back. We're chatting with Sean Brodrick. Sean, the Chinese government says it's not going to allow any new cryptocurrencies. That caused Bitcoin to drop. What's your picture on that?
Yeah, well, I can see that, why it would worry people in that there might be other crackdowns to come, but you have to think that the fewer there is of something, the more that should raise the price of something, right? So the fewer new cryptocurrencies that get issued, then that should actually help Bitcoin because it has less competitors. That's the way I would look at it. I do not invest in Bitcoin, by the way. I've completely missed this. So take my recommendations for what they're worth. But one of the reasons that I never invested in it is because what's to say the government can't say, okay, Bitcoin's outlawed. That's it. Outlaws use Bitcoin. Bitcoin is outlawed. That's what I really feared and why I never bought Bitcoin, because I thought that kind of thing can happen. So, anyone who is investing in that market is a speculator anyway. Good luck to them. I hope things go well. But the market seems to be having a strange reaction to this news out of China because really, if there are less new competitors for Bitcoin, that should raise the value of Bitcoin. You would think. Then again, obviously, I'm not the expert on Bitcoin, am I?
Well, with Bitcoin, you can't store it under your pillow or bury it in the backyard. And even
No, there are horror stories about, people throwing away hard drives that have like over $1 million of Bitcoin on them and stuff like that. Things do go wrong, yeah.
And they've been hacked.
Yes, it has been stolen in the past. And it's very hard for people to steal my gold. For one thing, they'd have to find it. I do hide it at my house. And so it just wouldn't be easy for people to find it. And you just can't steal it electronically. So I still think gold has some advantages.
Moving on to other things, what's going on with the marijuana space?
It's fallen into a slumber. Really interesting in that nothing seems to be going on with the marijuana space right now, which is disappointing for me. I would like things to move, but now marijuana just seems to be acting as a leverage play on the overall market, When the overall market goes up, marijuana stocks go up a lot. When the overall market goes down, marijuana stocks go down more than most. We really need some action there. Now, there is some stuff happening. In fact, I put this out in a weekly column last week on the number of U.S. states that could legalize recreational use next year is higher than most people might think. And basically because states are seeing the tremendous tax revenue that is being brought in by those states that have legalized. So that could be the next thing that moves it. But, it's only August now, and we're actually talking about things starting to happen in like January and like February. So that's a long wait. I think that's why marijuana stocks have gone to sleep. I hope they wake up sooner rather than later. But obviously I'm not the one who gets to say that it's time for them to stand up and start dancing around.
Well, how many more states are looking at joining the pot revenue circus? I mean, I'm thinking Alaska, Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada are online. Who's next?
Michigan, Connecticut, Arizona, even though they didn't have any luck last time, they're probably going to do it again. They've actually talked about Tennessee, which would shock everybody, but they might go for medical marijuana there. There's a bunch of other states that no one's really considering. Illinois, absolutely Illinois. Oh, the interesting thing about Michigan is they have more than one legalization of recreational marijuana bill that they actually get to vote on. But one of them is going to retroactively legalize marijuana. So anybody who's been convicted on a state crime for marijuana in Michigan, I think back to 1973 or 1975, I can't remember. Anyway, a long time, is going to have the record expunged if that one is passed. So that would be fascinating. That would be the voters going to the polls and saying, you know what, this anti-marijuana war was stupid from the get-go. And so anyone who was convicted of a state crime, because of it, they're off scot-free. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. That's one that I want to keep my eye on.
In Canada, where pot's going to be legal next July, they're still charging people for simple possession. Something like 9,000 to 12,000 people a year get a criminal record.
Yeah, well, I would hope that would mainly be public possession, people smoking in public, but it's probably not, because what we have learned over time is that people who have authority tend to abuse that authority. They don't start out wanting to be bad people, but, it's just power tends to corrupt. That's just a basic law of the universe. And so, it's a sad situation. I really wish it did not happen. Heck, I wish we had recreational marijuana down here because they keep crying about not having enough revenue in the state legislature. Maybe that would shut them up. So, we'll just have to see how things go. But I think next year could bring some big changes. And certainly my subscribers are positioned ahead of that. I just hope that they start moving sooner rather than later.
Hurricane Harvey and now Hurricane Irma. What's that going to do to the insurance market? Will people be able to get payouts? Will insurance companies go bankrupt because of this?
I've actually, that's one of my picks for things, for stocks for people to avoid and also to potentially go short is insurance companies. I think they're in a terrible position. And, Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Irma. There's another one brewing out there in the warm waters, by the way. As a friend of mine said, those Chinese hoaxers are just getting carried away. And I am allowed to joke about this because I'm in Florida. I am in Irma's sights, but I'm also a prepper, so I am prepared for this thing. I mean, sure, we could have property damage and stuff like that, depending on how the hurricane hits. But I'm fairly confident in my cement home, we can ride this thing out. Not everybody is going to be prepared that way. It's always the poorest people that suffer the most. That's the real shame of it, And so, just because they can't prepare and they can't get out of the way. We only have a few north-south routes, you know those things are going to be clogged. And so if you can't prepare in place, then you really should be moving now, because those roads clog up when an FSU game is going on. I can't imagine what's going to happen when people try to get out of the way of a major monster hurricane. So we'll just see how it goes. I think we're a very resilient state, but what the trend has been, and I recently on Twitter posted a chart of this, the trend is for more and more hurricanes. You can argue about why, but the trend is we are having more frequent and stronger hurricanes. And so that's a trend we are going to have to live with. And to bring it back to your initial question, I think insurers should be avoided and reinsurers doubly so, because they are really going to get hit with this. We're going to see a lot of people drop from insurance who had insurance. I'm not really sure what the answer is, but it's not going to be a pleasant situation at all.
Is it going to make insurance more expensive for the consumer?
You would have to think it would, yeah.
And how bad could Irma be?
Really, really bad. They're talking about 180 mile per hour winds now. Now, it is supposed to weaken slightly by the time it gets here, maybe be a Category 4. And we don't know if it's going up the west coast or the east coast or the middle of Florida. A few models say that it goes into the Gulf of Mexico. For the sake of Texas, I certainly hope that does not happen. But, I just wish this was a storm only the fishes had to deal with. Obviously, I'm not going to get my wish on that one. It's just one of the things we are going to have to deal with. Now, what does this mean? Well, if it does go up the east coast and continues to draw strength from the ocean as it slides up there, that won't just be trouble for Florida. That can be trouble all the way into the Carolinas. So we'll just have to see. But this could be a very big storm. It is a big storm, but I mean just a big storm in terms of financial impact as well. So definitely keep your eye on that.
And Sean, just before you go, you're going to be someplace close to me.
Yes, on September 15th, I'll be speaking at the Metals Investor Forum, which is in Vancouver. It's a great little conference. It's small, but I consider it elite because it's a chance to rub shoulders with and speak to and hear from CEOs of great up-and-coming mining companies that many of these companies people haven't heard of yet, but they certainly will, because there are some definite great companies of tomorrow at this conference. So that should be really exciting. It's, again, as I said, September 15th. So if you're in Vancouver, you should definitely come and attend.
Sean, always great talking with you.
Always great talking with you. Thanks for having me on.
My guest has been Sean Brodrick. He's the senior analyst for EdelstenInstitute.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Check out our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. Questions for the show or our guests can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.